Hey everyone, this is Eric with Trouts Fly Fishing in Denver. Today we're going to tie a fly called the Tsunami Bomb. I've been getting into Euro nymphing quite a bit lately, and I like, there's a ton of patterns out there now for it. This one, I'm a huge fan of the pheasant tail, and I really like the black pheasant tail. So my thought behind this is I wanted a really heavy anchor fly. So basically it's essentially a black pheasant tail, but it does have 2 tungsten beads. So this thing, it's very heavy and it's going to rock it to the bottom, and it's going to keep me in good contact when I'm drifting those flies. So basically what we're starting with is a radiant orange slotted tungsten bead in a 3.0 millimeter, and then behind it, for essentially acting as the thorax on the fly, is a 2.8 millimeter standard black tungsten bead. So getting started with tying this, I'm going to lay a layer of thread down, and as I'm tying this, I'm going to be very careful not to crowd materials into that black bead, because I do want a little bit of space in there for when I finish the fly. I'm actually gonna soft tackle it between the beads, so I don't want to crowd those so tight together I can't get my soft tackle in there. For the tail, I'm gonna use black pheasant tail. There are kind of some interesting things with black pheasant tail. Most of it anymore is dyed black. There are, every once in a while you'll get a package that is actually a natural black. The only real difference between the two is that the natural black keeps a lot of that iridescence that the natural feather has. The dyed ones, you lose a little bit of it. Quite honestly, I don't think it really matters. For the tail on this, since it is a Euro fly, we want it to be pretty sparse. And basically what I want to do is get the tail tied in, and then I want to get my UTC small copper wire tied in. And once I get those 2 tied in, I'm going to pull that pheasant tail back and pin it back down to the tail, because I don't want to cut it and tie a new piece. I just want to use the same piece for the body. I'm just going to wrap that pheasant tail up the shank pretty close to the black bead. I don't want to be right on top of it, because again, I don't want to crowd it. And the other nice thing that happens with this, using the same piece that you use for your tail, is you don't build up a really thick body on it. I want the body to still be pretty low profile, because the whole idea here is I want a fly that's going to sink very, very quickly. So on the copper wire on this, since it's pheasant tail, I'll counter wrap it just to make sure that wire doesn't get down in between the feather fibers, so that it's still visible, so I still get that color change and segmented look out of it. So once we get the copper wire tied in and broken off, maybe. So the last step here, you can kind of see that black bead isn't really tight onto that radiant bead. So I'm going to take, this is a whiting hen cape in black. When I'm choosing the feather I don't want this to be a super long soft tackle on it. So if I just kind of bend that around, I can kind of measure it up and see that I just want it to be able to cover that back bead just a little bit. So a couple different ways you can do this. I can either just bring the thread in between the beads, which is the faster way to do that, or you can whip finish it and cut it off, which quite honestly is the more durable way to tie the fly. Unfortunately, if you do it the other way, usually what ends up happening is you end up with that little piece of thread coming around the bead, and if it gets cut, then you end up with your fly falling apart. So I typically will whip finish it and retie the thread in between the beads. The other thing you can do is it gives you the ability to build up a little bit of a thread dam behind that radiant bead to kind of keep it in place where you want it. The nice thing is once you get the soft hackle in there, it'll kind of lock things in pretty well too. So I'll get the soft hackle tied in between those two. And since it's a soft hackle, I'm only going to do a couple of turns of it. Oh, man. Once I get that feather locked down, I can get rid of the excess, and then I'll pull those feather fibers back and do a few wraps so that it'll angle them backwards a little bit. And then I'll just whip finish between those two. I typically tie these in size 12. Again, most of the time I'm using this as an anchor fly, just for its weight. And that is the Tsunami Bomb. Thanks for watching. If you like videos like this, like and subscribe.